look at me way up high, suddenly here am I, I'm flying. I can soar, I can weave, and what's more, I'm not even trying.
Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome back to Every Version Ever. Today I'm joined once again by Stanford Clark to talk about another one of his favorite childhood films, the 1960 musical version of Peter Pan starring Mary Martin. This will be the first of a three-part series as there are two more versions of this musical. It was remade in 2000 and 2014, and then there was a separate 1976 Hallmark musical with all new songs. Stanford will be joining me for all of these episodes, and we'll be joined by Rachel Wagner of the Hallmarkies podcast to talk about the 1976 version. For now, let's talk about the original 1960 Mary Martin musical, Peter Pan.
You try and you fall flat on your face. I'm flying. Over bed, over chair, duck your head, clear the air. Oh, what lovely fun. Watch me, everyone. Take a look at me and see how easily it's done. I'm flying.
So you grew up with the Mary Martin musical, right?
Did. So, that color one that was filmed in 1960, I don't know how often it was rebroadcast because someone's probably got that documented somewhere, and maybe it's on that Wikipedia page that we both had looked at. But that's what I remember. And also, my parents had an LP, and we had a record album of either that 1960 telecast or from the 1954 Broadway original cast recording.
Okay.
So also my parents just loved Broadway musicals. And so we had original Broadway cast recordings of The Sound of Music that starred Mary Martin and also South Pacific. And, which she was also in the original Broadway cast for that. So I think because there was a lot of Mary Martin going on in our house. I think that's another reason why I was attached to it. And I think that the music in that 19 from the 1954 Broadway play, and hence the 1960 NBC telecast, I just love it. It's just a soundtrack of my childhood. The Also, John, Mary Martin recorded an album for Disney called Hi Ho, and she did covers of multiple Disney songs on this album. There's maybe like 8 or so track. It's still, you can, it's out there on Apple Music. I know. I have a CD copy of it that I think I found at Disneyland, back in the day when, you could buy CDs or, CDs were for sale, like that. So the Mary Martin stuff for me, just nostalgic, and I love it.
Well, I enjoyed the musical. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as you did, but I think that comes down to nostalgia.
It's nostalgia, absolutely. Yeah, because that's what I was wondering. I was like, I wonder what John's going to think of this because, not having any kind of background with it or whatever. I mean, clearly it looks like it's filmed in 1960, right? I mean, just the way the static camera and and all that stuff. But boy, it was fun. I think the choreography's fun. There was a thing. So it was a happy rewatch for me.
So besides Mary Martin, were you familiar with anybody else who was in this?
Well, so I thank you. Thanks for bringing that up because I also wanted to talk about the man who plays Captain Hook and also, of course, Mr. Darling. It's Cyril Richard is his name. And I remember as a kid just really being fascinated with both his performance and also he's got a really wonderful, I think, just really wonderful voice. He's an Australian actor. And I think, I looked up his, bio. He did a lot of different things, but I think he really came into popularity at the time through playing Captain Hook. He was in the original Broadway cast also in 1954, and then he was in the subsequent television versions. So I thought he was terrific, and it's fun to get. I just remember liking him as a kid, and then because I think Captain Hook is a delicious villain, and he plays it up, I think, just in a really good way, where he's scary, but also kind of campy, which I think the way Captain Hook should be. At least that's kind of my favorite interpretation of the role. No one else, but there's no one else. I think the woman who played Tiger Lily in the 1960 broadcast. I can't remember her name.
Sandra Lee.
She looked familiar. I mean, I guess she looked familiar to me because again, I remember watching. Now, I should clarify. I mean, I'm an old man, John, but I'm not. I wasn't born. I was not born in 1960.
Oh, I figured that.
But it was rebroadcast like every year kind of thing for
Uh-huh.
many years in my childhood. So it was always fun to watch on TV. And I think when VHSs started really taking hold, I believe that my mom bought a VHS copy of that broadcast too, because again, it was a family favorite.
So with the cast, I didn't recognize anybody. Like I'd heard the name Mary Martin, but only probably just because of research into old versions of things.
Yeah.
And she's a big actress from back then.
Yeah, yeah. Hugely popular. Yeah.
So she's the only one that I knew the name of. I had no idea who anybody else was, and I don't think anybody jumped out at me as looking familiar either while I was
Yeah. I
watching.
don't think there was any other really famous people in it.
And a lot of the people, especially the younger people, this was like either their only role or like one of the very few roles they ever had, which
Yes.
I've noticed that with a lot of the versions of Peter Pan that I've done, like any of the Lost Boys or even John and Michael. Sometimes it's like the only thing they ever did.
They
Like
ever
so,
did.
sometimes they'll be like a stage actor, and that's why they were brought on for this, but then they just go back to the stage and never do another movie or show.
Interesting. Yeah, because like Wendy, I didn't recognize her, in this 1960 version. I guess we, haven't seen her since, at least, for me. Maybe she's done, clearly done other things, but it's very such an interesting observation. Yeah.
It looks like Wendy has two other credits on IMDb, and her last one was in 1961. So yeah, she
Yeah.
didn't do
So
much.
he didn't do a lot.
And when I first watched this, I was a bit confused by the casting of some of the characters. But then as I was reading more, I was like, it's probably because they were the stage actors. Everybody seemed way too old.
Yeah, and I think that agreed. And I think I wonder if part of that is because yeah, they were, I mean, even though it was just 6 years, but still, and then TV, you're just so much closer, right, than you would be in a
Hmm.
theater.
Yes. Yes, that's another thing that I noticed. And I'm trying to save thoughts for other versions when we get to that episode.
Okay.
But between any of these, there are people who look too old, but then I have to remind myself this was a stage play. If you're in the audience, you're probably not going to even notice. So it's different for TV, and it's very noticeable in this one especially.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I feel like Michael was the only one who looked like he might have been around the right age. And I actually looked up the ages and did the math to figure out how old different people were. And Wendy and John were 24 and 14. So
Okay.
Wendy was 24 and John was 14. And
Yeah.
like they're supposed to be, I think John is supposed to be like 8 to 10 and
Yeah.
Wendy is like 10 to 12,
Yes.
depending on like it's never stated in the book, but that's usually how old they're supposed to be.
Right.
So yeah, they're a bit older than they're supposed to be here.
Well, and then, you know, Mary Martin, was she in her 30s or
Oh, yeah,
40s?
46.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like she was. I mean, I thought she did great. She was quite, I think athletic in the role, and
Yeah,
but then, she'd been playing it for so long too.
that was what I thought and how I figured that they justified it. She'd been doing it so long that this was her role.
Yes.
So, and for on the stage, it really doesn't matter. And even with this, even though it was very noticeable at the beginning, as the movie went on, I kind of just forgot and just
Yeah.
saw her as the character.
Yeah. Exactly. And for me, again, as I had already mentioned, I love her singing voice, and so I still felt she was in a very good voice for that 1960, telecast, and so
Mhm.
it worked. It worked for me.
One thing that stood out to me with this version, probably, I think there might have only been maybe one other version that included the character of Liza. That is a character who is almost never used in any
Well,
versions.
yeah, exactly. That was surprising to me. I had forgotten about her. You know,
Yeah,
And then she's like, oh yeah, there she is.
She has a small role in the book, but she's not a main character, which I think is why she's usually cut. So it was interesting to see her in this version, but then we'll get to it later, but they used her beyond the scope of her role in the book
Oh,
to the point
interesting.
where I was very confused as to what they were doing.
Yeah. It does kind of seem like, I mean, not to be rude, but kind of a throwaway role, you know? I mean,
Kind of.
yeah.
And also, that was another person that I looked up because as I was watching the beginning, I was like, I was confused as to who was who, and I thought that Liza and Wendy were each other's character. The actress playing Liza is 12. I feel like she would have been a better Wendy.
I know, right? She's 12. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You do your homework, John. You always teach me stuff. Thank you.
I don't always pay attention, but like when people look like
Yeah.
the if the ages are noticeable to me in a way that makes me stop, then I have to look it up and
Oh,
figure out
exactly. You know.
how old they are.
Yeah. I'm glad you did. Because, yeah, I mean, I thought she was young, but I didn't think it was that young. Yeah, you're right. She and Wendy
Yeah. I was
flop.
kind of surprised that she was 12 because like
Yeah.
John is 14, Wendy is 24. I kind of expected her to be in her older teens.
Yeah, that's what I thought she was going to be, kind of like 17, 18.
In the book, I believe she's an adult and I want to say she's middle-aged in the book, but I don't remember for sure.
Yeah, I don't recall either.
Well, we can talk about how this begins because there's a few songs at the beginning, and I think some of the beginning songs are probably my favorites from the whole thing. Because a lot of them, I just thought they were fine, but there were some very standout songs from the beginning.
Yeah.
Specifically, I Got a Crow and I'm
Hmm.
Flying.
Hmm.
Those have been going through my head since I watched these.
Yeah, I like, I'm with you. I think those songs in Act One are probably the strongest ones.
Hmm.
'Cause I love I Got a Crow. I really love the song Neverland.
Yeah.
And that's been covered a lot by, other artists.
Okay.
And yeah, if you're ever bored or wanting to look at, so there's stuff, or I could send you some ones that I like, but there's very few covers of that song I don't like, just because I think it's just such a beautiful song. And then I'm Flying is so much fun.
Hmm.
I think it rivals the You Can Fly song in the Walt Disney Animation Studios version,
Hmm.
just for delight, and it just because that's just, I think that's just the real magic of Peter Pan right there.
Yeah. The only one that I thought was kind of meh from the beginning was Tender Shepherd. I thought that was kind of forgettable.
Yeah, Tender Shepherd is it's forgettable.
One of my favorite scenes, just the brief scenes in the beginning, was when the kid who plays Michael gets pulled up into the air. Just the look on his face. He looks so excited to be flying.
Yeah, it's really cute, huh?
And then this version has Liza seeing the kids leave. In the book and in probably more than half of the versions I've seen, stay semi true to the book. The parents see them leave.
Yeah,
In this one, it has Liza.
yeah,
And
which I thought was weird.
yes, it gets weirder, which I didn't realize right away. But as they are leaving, Liza gets sprinkled with fairy dust. And I was expecting her to start flying, but then she didn't. And I thought, oh, that was kind of weird. Maybe it just looked like she did, and it wasn't anything. But I was very wrong.
Yeah.
So they go off to Neverland, and then on Neverland, we start out with some kind of terrible animal costumes.
Aren't those costumes weird?
I don't know what is up with these animals. There's nothing in the book about three animals that follow them everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've never seen any other version. The silent version has a lion that gets killed right
Yeah, that
away.
lion that gets killed. Yeah.
But other than that, I don't know where these animals came from.
Yeah,
I
I don't
think
either. I
somebody
just
just had an idea and went with it.
thought that it would be appealing,
Yeah.
for the kids or something. You know, they have these, these bizarre animal costumes and these dancers,
What do you know if these animal costumes were used in the stage play?
I don't know, but with this rewatch, here as an adult, I just wondered. I just wouldn't be surprised if they were in the play.
I have a feeling that if they were, they probably aren't anymore because the two versions that we'll talk about in the next one, those don't have animals.
Yeah, they don't have the animals. They cut them, which probably wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
But still, it seemed just kind of like a 1960s or kind of thing, or if maybe I guess it was a
Yeah.
show like a 50s, just kind of a yeah,
I can't really think of any examples, but it does seem like something that you would see in like a kind of cheesy 50s
yeah,
movie, like a
yeah,
made-for-TV thing.
yes,
And then I thought it was interesting after you see the animals, you have the Lost Boys show up and like attack the ostrich. And then the the book talks about each lost boy having their own tree, but the way it describes it, it's more of like an entrance to their hideout. But this one seems to interpret that as they have a tree that they take with them because they all jump into trees and then run away in the trees. But you don't really see that again until like one scene later, and then it doesn't really play a part in the rest of the story.
yeah. That seemed weird to me. As this rewatch as an adult, it's like, what's that about?
Yeah. And then the pirates show up. What did you think about the pirate songs?
See, again, they're childhood, songs of my childhood. So that for me, it was fun. Just in that I hadn't heard them for so long.
Hmm.
So, I love the Tarantella one, and again, I just think Cyril Richard as Captain Hook is just so campy uh,
Hmm.
in the role. So I thought nostalgia again, John. That's kind of the theme of this. What did you think?
They were fine. There was none that really stood out to me. I
Yeah,
would say
yeah,
that I
I
think the
can understand.
last one, the waltz, was probably my favorite towards the end,
Yes.
but the other
Oh,
two were, they were fine.
yeah. I hear you. Again, I just think it was because I had enjoyed them, on that album and on the TV broadcast as a kid. It was so fun to hear them because it's just been years.
Hmm. And then I thought it was weird that they've added in this element into the song, the tango song first, where they're singing about poisoning the Lost Boys with a cake.
Yeah.
That must have been something that they made up for this musical because I think I would remember that from the book if it had been in there.
Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, well, isn't this the only one where a cake shows up?
As far as I can remember.
Yeah, as far as we've seen, yeah, I'm with you. Maybe the cake was, like with the animals. They just added it in for whatever narrative reason.
Yeah. And then after this first song, the crocodile shows up. And I have to say, this is probably the worst crocodile that I've seen so far.
Isn't it horrible? It's just some dude, pulling himself along the ground.
Yeah. There have been other versions where it's a guy in a costume pulling himself along the ground, but the other versions somehow do it better. This
Yeah,
one
well, and
seemed kind of they needed to get somebody who was or get maybe have him practice more.
yeah, I'm with you because it just seemed like he was struggling. And then also though, the costume didn't seem, I mean, the costume seemed more in a way like the size of a real life alligator,
Hmm.
a little crocodile, excuse me, but not foreboding. You know what I mean? Like not it
Yeah.
didn't seem scary. I mean, that's one of the things I think I love about the Disney one is that the crocodile is a great character, but I think also the size of the
Hmm.
crocodile. Like this is like you can totally picture. I mean, he's big enough that he could eat Captain Hook. Not
Yeah.
not just his
Yeah.
hand.
Well, then we come to the Indians, and I have to say, I did not expect there to be a version of Peter Pan that made the Disney version seem like the better choice for Indians.
Yeah, the Indian stuff is challenging. It was interesting to see too how, I know we'll get to it later, but how those different versions of the musical kind of have modify
Yeah.
those Indian sequences as a child. And I noticed again, this is just I don't know this for a fact, John, but that when we first meet Tiger Lily and the Indians and they're doing that dance where they're almost like in a circle,
Hmm.
kind of bunched together.
Yeah.
Tiger Lily's at the head, or at the front of it, facing the camera. I don't know if that's Ugga Wug, if
Yeah.
that's if that's is that
Well,
right? That's is
that
that
I don't know that like on I think on Wikipedia it's listed as Indians and then the Ugga
okay.
Wugga, but
That's one
I
with
think that's the
Peter
later one, but
Pan,
this one
right? Yeah, that she's
says
with Peter Pan.
this one has that in the lyrics, but the lyrics are mostly nonsense.
Yeah, that's nonsense. They're just making sounds.
Well, sort of. Well, there was the line "Ugga Wugga Wigwam, Ugga Wugga Meatball," and
Oh
I was
yeah,
like,
the
"What?
meatball.
What the heck is that supposed to mean?"
Oh, you're right. I forgot about the meatball. Yeah, because they say things like, "I just was saying, did she just say meatball?" I think she
Yeah,
did. Yeah, you're right. So there's just saying nonsensical words, right? Uh,
mostly. Yeah, I didn't like if it was supposed to mean something. It's lost on me.
yeah. I was reminded in the opening credits that Jerome Robbins did the staging for this 1954 show, and he's a legendary, right, Broadway producer and choreographer and whatnot. He co-directed. Well, I think he directed the stage version of West Side Story, or was involved with that. There was at least the choreographer, and then he was involved with the film version of West Side Story. The one with Natalie Wood,
Hmm.
and just that choreography of them, the way that they were dancing. I really wonder if that was something straight off the Broadway stage from Jerome Robbins, just because I thought I quite liked it, and but it doesn't get used again in those other productions. They really changed the choreography for those Native American dances,
Hmm.
in those other productions. But and I thought the costumes were fun because they looked really 1960s ish to me too.
Hmm.
They were all wearing pants, kind of like little crop top things or whatever. And they're all Caucasian too, right?
Yes, yes. I don't
Yeah,
think there was anybody who was
yeah,
the correct race.
yeah. So anyway,
Which I mean, I wasn't expecting there to be. I figured that this scene would be cringy, but I didn't expect it to be worse than the Disney version.
yeah.
I will say, I guess if you can call it the saving grace, if that, I think the Indians are the best dancers in this thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And again, think that that's got to be a thing that was done on Broadway,
Hmm.
and I just attribute that all to Jerome Robbins.
Hmm. Well, this scene ends with the Indians freaking out, thinking that Wendy flying in is an omen, and Tiger Lily yells, "Old Indian proverb, when in doubt, run!" And they all run away screaming, which I just rolled my eyes. I was like, this is painting the Indians in the worst light of all of them because like even in the Disney version, at least they're not dumb. In
Right.
this version, they're just kind of dumb. And then another change that they've made here is that the Lost Boys just decide to shoot this bird. This isn't Tinkerbell trying to get them to kill Wendy.
They kill the Wendy bird. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just the Lost Boys try to shoot her down because it's a giant bird. And then they also have Wendy just be asleep. Like in the book and in most versions, at this point, she is injured. Like she's not like deathly injured because she had the kiss around her neck, which is what the arrow hit.
Yeah.
But in this version, she's just asleep,
Yeah. And then the
which
whole
I thought was a strange choice.
I did too. And then they build the house around her. I mean, wow, what was that? What was going on with that?
Well, in the book, they want to move her because she's injured and she needs to recover, but they don't want to harm her. So instead of moving her, they build the house around her so that they
Okay.
can.
So you're right. So it is accurate, isn't it? I had forgotten that part. Yeah.
So it makes more sense in the book since she's injured, but here just having her be asleep,
Just have her be asleep.
it was a weird choice then to build the house around her when she's just sleeping.
Yeah.
And then you have the song that they sing while they're building the house, which I liked that song.
Yeah, I did too.
And then in the middle of all this, the this was so dumb, but it made me laugh. The pirates sneak in behind these bushes, and there's like this giant fake long Captain Hook arm stretching out to
Yeah.
leave the poisoned
At
cake.
least the cake.
It was so dumb that
It's
it's
so
just
weird.
hilarious.
Yeah. It was like, yeah, I thought that was a really weird choice.
And then I also loved the line when Wendy tells them they can't eat it because it's much too damp and rich.
And I was like, what kind of cakes are they normally eating?
I don't know, but just the way she said it and the phrasing of damp and
Damp
rich
and rich. Like,
it
wow.
just cracked me up.
Yeah. Same here.
I was like, I mean, I wouldn't eat a mysterious cake that just appeared out of nowhere, but not because I thought it was too damp and
It's too
rich,
damp
but
and
because it
rich.
was a mysterious cake that appeared out of nowhere. That seems
Yeah.
worse than just, oh, it's too rich.
Yeah.
And then I think at this point, they all go in and go to bed. And then you get another song with the pirates. This is where you get the Tarantella.
Yeah.
And then you have a song that was cut after this one called Neverland Waltz, which has no vocals, I don't think. But this is where I was just so confused because this is like a dance with the trees and the animals. And Liza floats in,
Yeah.
feather duster in hand.
Yeah. With her feather duster.
I'm like, what is going on here? And it's never explained.
Yeah. It's not explained. It's just like, hey, we're gonna have a dance break now. And so yeah, that is a weird scene.
At the end of the dance, she sees Peter sleeping outside the house, and she like goes and gets down next to him. Uh, but like, why? She doesn't know who this person is.
So weird.
And then you get the song "I Won't Grow Up," which
Which
is
is
another one I
another
really
one.
like.
Yeah, okay, good. I like that one too. Yeah, I think that's a great one.
It's another one that has been going through my head off and on since I watched these.
Yeah.
And while this one was going on, I don't think the Darlings were there, and I was like wondering where are the Darlings? And then I kind of forgot about the Darlings at this point.
Uh,
And they're kind of gone for a while because
yeah.
after this, the pirates come back with Tiger Lily. They're planning to tie her to a tree and leave her for the wolves. I guess they didn't have a budget for a
For Skull Rock.
lagoon.
Yeah.
And then you get another bizarre scene that I don't know where this came from. There's a song called Oh My Mysterious Lady, where Peter pretends to be a spirit of the forest and enchants Captain Hook. And it's like singing opera. And like, this is, I guess this is sort of in the book because Peter pretends to be a spirit haunting the lagoon where Captain Hook is trying to drown Tiger Lily.
Yeah.
But in that scene, he figures out what's going on pretty quickly and tricks Peter into revealing himself. But in this one, he doesn't figure out who this is. And it's like a scene out of Looney Tunes where Bugs Bunny is trying to seduce Elmer Fudd. I was
But
like, what
but
is
he's dressed in
happening
drag.
here?
Yeah.
This is so weird.
Yeah, it is such a weird scene. And again, I was happy to hear the song again because I remember liking the song, particularly on the album, but it's weird. It
Yeah.
just I just said like, wow, this and it also just seemed like it went on too long. I was like, wow.
It took a
Maybe I
while,
was just
yes.
getting bored. I was like, can we have to do this?
Uh-huh. And then it ends bizarrely too, because the pirates do eventually figure out that it's Peter Pan, but before they could do anything, the Indians come back riding on scooters.
I know. Yeah. It's, wow. Fancy.
There's so many strange things in this movie.
Yeah.
And then they all go back to the Lost Boys, who start to attack them, but Peter declares they're all friends. And this is where you get the Ugga Wug song.
Oh, okay.
And then I don't know if they were there the whole time or not, but at the end of this song, Wendy shows up to tell Tiger Lily that she'll never get her children to sleep after all this excitement. And then I was like, I haven't seen the Darlings in ages. They were gone for a huge chunk of this
Yeah,
movie.
that big break. Maybe it was child labor or something, that they had to
The
like.
only thing I could think of was that they wanted to give them a good rest
Yeah,
because, like, it would have been a stage play and this would have been the whole, like, they would have needed to have the characters take breaks.
yep.
So that was the only thing I could think of there.
But you're right. 'Cause, yeah, they are MIA, you know.
Yeah. So then the Indians go to stand guard, and there's a scene in here similar to the book where Peter and Wendy are discussing whether or not they're actually the boys' parents. And then there's a line about Tinkerbell behaving strangely towards Peter, as if there's something that she wants to be to him, but it's not her mother. In the book, this is about Tiger Lily. I don't know why they replaced Tiger Lily with Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
And then you get the song Distant Melody, which I liked this one.
Hmm.
Most of my favorites have been like the more upbeat ones, but this is one of the more somber ones. But I did like this song.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty song. Yeah.
It's Peter singing about something a long time ago that he can't really even remember. And Michael hears this and gets homesick and wants to go home. And then Wendy tells the Lost Boys if they come with them, their mother will adopt them. And they're planning on leaving. And Wendy just assumes Peter's going to come with them and tells him to take his medicine before they leave. And then he says he's not coming. And then you get the pirate attack on the Indians. And like every version that I've watched recently, has done this differently. Probably because in the book, it's basically a massacre. Like there are almost no Indians survive this attack.
Hmm.
And then this happens like super quick here. They hear like a scuffle up top, and then there's the line about if the Indians win, Tiger Lily will beat the Tom Tom, and that's how they'll know it's safe. And the pirates hear this, so they bang on the drum to trick them into coming out. And you have the goodbye scene between Peter and Wendy telling him that if he comes to get her in the spring, she'll do his spring cleaning for him.
Spring cleaning.
Hmm. And then in this version, apparently it's always Hook's plan to poison Peter. In the
Yes.
book, and like most versions that like tried to do it correctly, he's just going to kill him, but he can't really fit into the hideout because it's built for the Lost Boys. But because of the way they do this, to me, it makes no sense. Like, if he's really wanting to off Peter, he could just stab him while he's asleep. And
Yeah.
here he sneaks into the
He
hideout
sneaks
to
in
poison him.
yeah, puts poison in his medicine.
Where in the book, he can't fit through the door, but he can just reach the medicine that Wendy left behind. And he always keeps poison in case he needs it in his jacket. So he pulls that out and dumps it into the medicine because that's the only thing that he can do. And then you get the famous fourth wall breaking scene where Peter addresses the
Yes.
audience because Tinkerbell drinks the medicine to save him.
Right.
And I feel like it works best in the versions that are staged more like a play. Like, I feel like this works even better in the play version, even than the book. Because, like, the book, and also, I have to compare it also to the 2003 version, because that's like, I haven't seen enough other ones where they don't specifically address the audience. Like, Peter turns around and looks directly into the camera.
Yeah.
Because the Disney version replaces the poison with a bomb,
Yeah.
but the 2003 version is more like the book, which to me doesn't make a ton of sense because it's almost like he's telepathically communicating with all the children of the world. Because, like in the book, it's described as him, like, I don't know, thinking about or talking to all the children who are right at that moment dreaming of Neverland.
Yeah.
I just feel like it works so much better in this version and in other versions where Peter turns around and looks at the camera and begs you, specifically the person watching, to clap your hands and tell Tinkerbell that you believe in her to bring her back to life.
Yeah.
So then after Tinkerbell is saved, we go to the pirate ship and you get the waltz, which I think is probably the best one in this version.
Yeah, I agree.
It did go on too long though.
Yeah, they go on a little long. I think so too. Yeah.
And also you had Captain Hook randomly killing two of his pirates.
I know. Yeah.
I think my favorite part of that though was when he's bemoaning all of the injustices that have been done. He's wailing about the Lost Boys playing pirates, and he's so upset that they make the baby play Captain Hook. That cracked me up.
Yeah, that's funny.
And apparently, the boys find Smee lovable in this version, which he's also miffed about.
Yeah.
And then he hears the ticking, and he's screaming for Smee to hide him. But then they basically just lie down on the deck together and do nothing.
Yeah. I'm like, okay.
I feel this is probably one of the most ridiculous scenes because at this point Peter sneaks in and he's bringing all of the Indians with him. Like apparently they didn't die in a massacre in this version.
Yeah.
And he also has the animals for some reason and Liza.
Yeah, Liza and what are the animals doing on this pirate ship?
I don't know. I was so confused by a lot of this. And he's just going around, he's like putting them in cupboards and hiding them here and hiding them there, just all over the ship. Well, the pirates are hiding themselves, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It was like this kind of screwball scene, but I don't know. It didn't really work for me.
I suppose maybe it would have been funnier on the stage. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's what I wondered too. And in the time, the era. It just
Yeah, yeah.
might have worked better. Yeah. Kind of like the long arm with the Captain Hook arm with the cake.
Yeah. But that made me laugh either way. I thought it was just so weird that it was hilarious.
Then it was funny.
That also didn't take forever though. That was a quick
True.
visual
That was
gag.
a quick gag. Yeah.
And then you actually do get the scene from the book where Peter is killing the pirates one by one.
Right. They left that out.
Well, they usually sort of leave that out, but they have it here. They have I think they call him Black Bill in this version, but it's Bill Jukes in the book. Peter first mistakes him as one of his crew, I guess, and then he's acting like he's going to hide him with the Indians, but then he apparently stabs him when they go out of sight. And then Checo is sent in to look for him, and he's killed. And then Hook sends in Starkey, who refuses and jumps overboard,
Yeah, that's right.
which is how it played out in the book.
Okay.
So then he sends the Lost Boys in because he figures if there's something horrible lurking around on the ship, he can kill off the boys and they won't have to worry about them. And he's going to make Wendy walk the plank because they think that she's cursed the ship because of a woman on the ship or something like that.
The plank, which is a slide. It's
We'll
also
get there. That
confusing.
was ridiculous.
Yeah. Very confusing to me. I had forgotten all that.
And then Peter sneaks in disguise, and it takes a sweet time to reveal himself before he announces the attack. Like if it were me and I was bringing in this fleet of people and creatures and a maid in order to fight the pirates, why not just do it right at the beginning? But I guess for comedy.
Yeah.
And then you get the battle, the big fight, and Captain Hook announces that he's going to blow up the ship, and he gets a big cartoony bomb, which is sort of from the book. It's different, but in the book, Peter actually does stab Captain Hook, and
Oh
he
yeah.
Captain Hook runs below deck to blow up the powder magazine, but Peter basically just follows him, picks it up, and calmly tosses it overboard. But in this one, he gets like a big cartoon bomb, and he says he's going to blow up the ship. And Peter has apparently smuggled the crocodile on board,
Yeah. I
which is not from the book.
was gonna say that's not the way the book.
So this thing shows up, scares Captain Hook into dropping the bomb, and then Captain Hook slides down a slide into the sea with the crocodile sliding in after him,
After him.
sitting like a human.
Yeah. Like he climbs the ladder, right? Whatever. Down the
And
slide.
then Peter tosses in the bomb to kill Captain Hook, I guess.
Yeah.
But in the book, Captain Hook jumps overboard to get away from Peter because Peter gets the upper hand. He's gonna get him either way. But Captain Hook doesn't know that the crocodile is waiting below because the clock had wound down. So it was no longer ticking.
It wasn't ticking.
So he jumps into the sea and is eaten.
The croc finally gets him.
Yeah. Then you get a reprise of I Got a Crow, and everybody's celebrating the victory. And all the pirates are tied up. In the book, they died.
Yeah.
There are only two pirates survived the attack on the ship in the book. I think it was Starkey who's the one who jumped overboard. But in the book, it says that he was captured by the remaining Indians and forced to be their nursemaid.
Yeah.
And the only other survivor of the attack was Smee, who the book says then traveled the world telling stories of his time as a pirate and the only pirate that Captain Hook feared.
Yeah.
But then this reprise of I Got a Crow was confusing because he's trying to teach Liza to crow for some reason. Like they really wanted Liza to have a role in
I
this.
know. It's like,
They
why is he talking to Liza?
they kept bringing her back for things, but it never made sense what they were bringing her back for.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
So then we go back home and see Mrs. Darling with Nana. She's telling Nana not to disturb the master who is now living in her home out of remorse, which is technically from the book, except in the book, he is living outside in the doghouse, which he's done that because he blames himself for forcing Nana to live outside and
So
having no one to watch over the kids.
when Peter showed
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. So I guess it's technically true to the book, but he was not living in the house in a little kennel thing. He was living outside.
Gotcha.
And then you get a reprise of Tender Shepherd with the kids flying in, singing to announce their return. And the Lost Boys appear and they're all instantly adopted. And you get a reprise of I Won't Grow Up, now reworded to I Will Grow Up. And then everybody goes to get a bath. And Wendy calls out the window for Peter not to forget her and to come back for her for spring cleaning.
For spring cleaning.
And then the narrator says that that was the last time that Wendy saw Peter for a long time. And he returns when she's an adult, and he doesn't initially realize this. And he starts crying when he realizes that Wendy has grown up. And then Wendy hears her husband calling, so she runs out of the room. And then Jane wakes up, now played by the same actress who played Wendy.
Who played Wendy? Yeah.
And she tells him that she's been waiting for him to come for her. And then you get a reprise of Never Neverland.
Of Neverland, yeah.
And Peter takes Jane while Wendy waves goodbye.
Which is, yeah. I guess that's an okay way to end it. What did you think? What did you think of the ending?
It was fine. There are other endings that I've liked better, but it was okay. I was surprised to see that they included this end because I feel like I've read that like when it's played on stage, they usually omit the last chapter where Wendy grows up, but maybe that was earlier versions. I don't know.
Yeah, neither.
But yeah, that was the Mary Martin version. We will talk about a couple more in the next episode. It'll be interesting to see how you feel the remakes compare to the original.
Yeah.
But until we get to there, do you want to let people know where they can find you if they want more from you?
Yes, I've got a movie podcast and website. It's at moviespastandpresent.com.
Okay. Well, we will see you next time to talk about the 2000 version and the 2014 version. Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.